a deep dive explainer on a viral presentation that has absolutely been everywhere online lately. It's called the Billionaire Brain Wave, and man, it makes some pretty bold claims about how success actually works from a neurobiological level. Now, to be clear, we're not here to endorse this or debunk it. We're just taking a totally objective look under the hood to see exactly how this pitch is built. We're going to break down the science it cites, the psychological hooks it uses, and the exact mechanism it claims can physically transform your mind. If you've ever found yourself wondering how these viral personal development programs structure their arguments to be so persuasive, well, you're in for a really fascinating breakdown. Let's get started. So the presentation starts out by hitting us with this incredibly relatable paradox. I mean, why is it that some people are out there grinding 80 hours a week, working 3 jobs, and still barely making rent, while others just seem to effortlessly attract luck? We all know somebody like this, right? They're the ones who just stumble into random promotions or have million-dollar business ideas essentially drop right into their laps. They seem to live in this constant state of flow. Well, for decades, society has told us it's all about the hustle and the grind. But this pitch, it flips that script completely. It introduces this really radical claim that wealth is actually a physical brain attribute and not just a reflection of how hard you work. To really dial up the intrigue, the marketing pulls you in with what they call the I-squared discovery. And here's the hook. They claim this is research the CIA actively tried to keep hidden from the public. By framing it as this suppressed, top-secret information, the narrative creates this massive sense of urgency and exclusivity. It essentially promises you a forbidden method to literally resize your brain, turning it from this exhausted, overworked organ into an actual biological magnet for prosperity. It's an incredibly powerful hook, honestly. It shifts you from feeling like you're just endlessly stuck in the rat race to feeling like you're an insider who just got handed the keys to a massive secret. Now, to explain how this brain resizing actually works, the presentation sets up a really stark contrast between 2 very different states of mind. First up is the beta wave, which they bluntly rebrand here as the slave wave. This is your everyday, high-stress fight-or-flight wave where, honestly, most of us spend our time. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum is the theta wave, which they call the wealth wave. They describe this as the state of deep intuition, creative breakthroughs, and extreme luck. Basically, the exact frequency the top 1% supposedly operate on. The core problem, according to the pitch, is that as we age and just deal with the daily pressures of life, that slave wave completely takes over, and our wealth wave essentially just shrivels up. And they illustrate the real danger of being stuck in that beta state with this genuinely powerful analogy. They say it's like trying to drive through a fog bank with your high beams on. Think about that for a second. When you hit your high beams in heavy fog, the light just violently reflects right back into your eyes, right? You're completely blinded. Well, the pitch claims this is exactly what's happening neurologically. When you're super stressed out and just grinding away in a beta state, your brain actually becomes physically incapable of seeing the opportunities right in front of you, no matter how hard you're working. So, what's the actual biological mechanism behind all of this? Well, the pitch points to one very specific part of the brain, the hippocampus. According to their presentation, you should really think of the hippocampus as a literal antenna for your brain. They cite research suggesting that highly successful people actually have a significantly larger hippocampus than the average person. And because this antenna is physically larger, the theory is that it's able to generate a massive abundance of those highly desirable theta waves. Notice what they're doing here? They're taking the blame for financial struggle completely off of your daily habits and placing it squarely on the physical dimensions of this one tiny brain structure. Which brings us to a crucial point. How exactly do we lose this biological advantage in the first place? The presentation outlines this seriously vicious cycle that traps the average person. They argue that in our modern world, chronic, everyday stress doesn't just make you feel emotionally drained. It actually causes your hippocampus to physically shrink. Let that sink in. You're stressed because you don't have enough money, right? But that exact stress is physically reducing the size of the very part of your brain that you supposedly need to attract money. It is a total biological catch-22. Having established this pretty terrifying biological trap, the narrative quickly pivots to the solution. And it all boils down to one highly accessible number, 7. You see, this program isn't pitched as some grueling month-long meditation retreat. It's framed as a highly targeted audio track that only requires 7 minutes of your day. By keeping the time commitment that incredibly low, the pitch masterfully removes one of the biggest objections to personal development programs, which is, nobody has the time. It's promising this profound neurological shift for basically the cost of just sitting there and hitting play while you drink your morning coffee. So how does the audio actually work? The presentation breaks down a 3-step mechanism they call brainwave entrainment. Step 1 is super simple. Just listen to their highly specific dual frequency audio track.
Step 2 is where the science claims come in. The audio allegedly hits the exact resonance needed to stimulate your hippocampus. They frame it as a targeted, physical workout for that specific part of your brain. And finally, step 3. This daily workout supposedly shifts your neurological baseline. It forces your brain out of that jagged, stressful slave wave and permanently tunes it into the smooth, flowing billionaire wave.
To back all of this up, the pitch leans heavily into anecdotal evidence and user results, and they are very careful to insist that you aren't just sitting there engaging in generic positive thinking or wishing for money. They draw a really sharp line between their system and those generic money frequency videos you might find on YouTube. Because they claim you are physically altering your biological baseline, the marketing says users experience real, tangible windfalls. We're talking things like finding unexpected checks in the mail, getting totally random out-of-the-blue job offers, and suddenly getting the extreme mental clarity you'd need to finally launch that business you've been putting off. Of course, no pitch like this is complete without bonuses, right? The presentation bolsters its perceived value by throwing in a stack of supplementary materials with titles like The Warren Buffett Pyramid and 7 Lazy Millionaire Habits. But they cleverly position these as much more than just extra reading material. They frame it as a holistic system. The logic they present is that while the 7-minute audio track is doing all the heavy lifting of rewiring your brain's biological hardware, these bonus guides are there to simultaneously rewire your conscious, everyday software. Now, knowing perfectly well that claiming you have a wealth-attracting brain antenna is frankly extraordinary, the presentation tackles skepticism head-on. They back the whole thing with a 90-day, 100% money-back guarantee. They actually tell the viewer straight up, hey, you should be skeptical. It's a world full of fake gurus. By giving you 3 full months to test the audio, the pitch is designed to completely neutralize any hesitation. It's a textbook, direct response marketing technique. They are shifting absolutely all the financial risk off your shoulders and putting it entirely onto themselves to prove that the system actually works. All of this brings us to the ultimate question at the heart of this presentation. Can you genuinely tune your brain for the life you want? Look, this pitch is an absolute masterclass in framing. It takes our collective exhaustion with the daily grind and offers this biohacked escape route rooted in frequency resonance. But as we step back and look at the anatomy of this viral campaign, it leaves us with a really provocative question to think about. Is the true magic here actually found in the precise frequencies of a 7-minute audio track? Or is it in the undeniable, captivating power of a perfectly crafted psychological story? I'll let you think about that one.